Hi, it's Christina with the Sisyphean Journal. And, you know, this shouldn't have to be said, but a paper bag isn't medical care. Antonesha Ross's family described her as a young woman who loved singer Keisha Cole, wrote poetry, and had a laugh that lifted people's spirits. She had gone to Evanston Township High School and was pursuing a GED. She wanted to go to college. She had a new job lined up that she was about to start in 2 days. She was working on building a better life for herself and her 2 young children. That was all going to come crashing down. On May 2nd of 2009, this 18-year-old went to Women's Aid Clinic of Lincolnwood, Illinois. She had an ultrasound performed that showed that she was 16 weeks pregnant. However, she also had an upper respiratory infection, swelling in her throat, and tonsils that were described as beefy red. And to their credit, the staff at the clinic did decide not to go ahead that day with the abortion. And that made them far more responsible than the Planned Parenthood nurse practitioner who inserted laminaria into the cervix of Adrika Good in spite of obvious infection, ultimately leading to Adrika's sepsis death. But instead, the staff instructed Antonesha to go to a family doctor or an urgent care center to get her throat infection treated. And Antonesha made a down payment for her abortion. She was to come back for it on May 8th and pay the remaining $390. So Antonesha returned on that scheduled day, but the meticulous care from the first visit seemed a little lacking. Nobody documented that they had checked to verify that the infection had been treated or cleared up. Dr. Josephine Camper, who, again, it would have been her responsibility to examine Antonesha and ensure that she was healthy enough for this abortion. She initiated the abortion at 12:55 p.m. and finished at 1 o'clock. A 5-minute abortion performed in the second trimester, which seems like a bit of a rush job to me. Certified registered nurse anesthetist Lawrence Hill administered the anesthesia. During the abortion, Antonesha's blood oxygen saturation fell to between 80 and 90%, and she began to cough up blood through her mouth and nose. And one of the staff, either Camper or another employee, rather than perform medical care, gave her a paper bag to breathe into. And needless to say, this was not any help. Antonesha went into cardiorespiratory arrest, and it wasn't until 40 minutes after the abortion was completed that anybody called the ambulance. Medics transported her to Present St. Francis Hospital in Evanston, Illinois, and she was pronounced dead in their emergency room at 3:05. Antonesha's aunt, Michelle Nix, told the Chicago Tribune, "It was devastating. The family all met at this hospital where they had taken her body, and it was just so bizarre just to see her there. To this day, it doesn't seem real. I just can't believe it." And Antonesha's cousin had been with the family at the hospital. She told the Chicago Tribune that she had trouble leaving Antonesha's side even after her death. "I literally held her hand until her hand turned blue. They had to have security remove me." The ugly truth came out in the autopsy. It turns out that not only was Antonesha still suffering from a respiratory infection, she had full-blown bronchopneumonia. By the end of the abortion, her lungs were filled with fluid, and this was something that breathing into a paper bag wasn't going to fix. So Hill, the nurse anesthetist, was disciplined and fined $10,000 for failure to properly assess, evaluate, and treat a patient who, unless there was another dead patient at that same clinic in 2009, was clearly Antonesha. And shockingly, Antonesha was the third abortion death Hill had been involved with. 2 previous cases had been settled out of court between 2004 and 2006. And another patient under Hill's care had been left in an irreversible coma. Now, it's likely that one of those deaths was Nakia Jordan, who was, like Antonesha, not properly monitored or resuscitated in 1998. And the other was probably Maria Lejo, who died of anesthesia complications in 1999. As for Dr. Camper, who, again, failed to check to see that her patient was healthy enough for this abortion, starting a medical procedure on somebody with bronchopneumonia, She negotiated with the medical board for that failure to properly evaluate an abortion patient, again, most likely Antonesha, and to assess and agree to Hill's anesthesia plan. So she agreed to 2 years of probation on her license, including requirements for monitoring and education. Ooh, bad girl, bad girl. State officials also cited the clinic for their treatment of Antonesha, as well for 15 health and safety violations, including not having a registered nurse to oversee patient care, failing to properly track narcotics and sedatives, and failure to ensure a sanitary facility with all equipment in good working order. Maybe the only equipment they had in working order was a brown paper bag. And even though the procedure room had not been used for 2 days at the time of the inspection, inspectors found insulin syringes outside their protective packaging, and there were 28 vials of expired medication on the anesthesia chart. Medications and frozen dinners were stored in a biohazard refrigerator that was used to store fetal and placental tissues. Inspectors saw a recovery room technician take a paper towel out of the trash and use it to cover a tray used to serve food to patients. The facility was fined $36,000. However, the corporation's owners managed to avoid the fine by closing Women's Aid Clinic and reopening as Women's Aid Center with the same location, the same website, the same phone number. And Antonesha's cousin commented to the Chicago Tribune about this evasion. At the end of the day, there is a young lady that is gone, and she cannot see her children grow up, and her family misses her. And for us to not get justice, for them not to pay the fine, that's not right. It's just not right. Her parents did sue on behalf of the children and accepted a settlement of annuities offered by the defendants, with almost $500,000 to come from the clinic and a little over $80,000 to come from Hill. And Antonesha, just as she was the third death I know of that Lawrence Hill was involved in, she was the third patient I know of that died at Women's Aid Clinic. Kathleen Gilbert and Dorothy Muzzaria had both been sent home to bleed to death.